Let's talk about letting go. The bravest moment where I let go was actually a moment where I felt temporarily insane. It was 19 months and some weeks ago when I suddenly walked out on my abusive husband, who I'd been with for 21 years. And it had gotten to the point where the current existence was so painful for me, so I just couldn't bear it anymore. Before this moment, there were many things that tied me to him. It was our history together, so the nostalgia and the memories of the good times that I hoped would come back. It was the hope or the clinging to the outcome that my kids would have a whole family and a stable home and the idyllic childhood. That was a big one. I just couldn't imagine uprooting them or breaking apart our marriage. I very much resisted the idea of leaving my husband, and also because he was abusive, and sometimes he acted very harmful and destructive, and I was under the false impression that I had some control over this. So while I was staying with him, I felt that, well, I am able to calm him down and control the situation so it doesn't get out of hand. But what will happen if I'm not there? And also it was, actually my life was on the line. 3 months earlier, I tried to talk about separating, and he tried to end my life. So a lot of things were at stake, but I just came to the point where it is either my freedom or it's my life can end here. I don't want to continue living like this. It was slavery. It was slavery. I was working full-time, taking care of the kids, and at the same time keeping things at home in perfect order. Home-cooked meals every day, clean, impeccable home, and also trying to keep him in a good mood. And I was, after all these years, I was exhausted, and I actually crashed into a burnout episode after this. But clinging and letting go played a large part during our whole relationship. And I think it's part of the human condition. So this is a struggle that all humans face. My husband was, of course, clinging. He was a narcissist, malignant one. He was very ego-centered. Keeping up his appearance and his self-image was perhaps the most important thing in his existence. And I had become a large part of that self-image. I was a medical doctor. I think I was good looking. And we had 2 kids, and he liked to flash that. That was the only thing left that he could flaunt to get respect. And on top of that, he also comes from a shame and honor culture. Of course, not every person who comes from such a culture is like my husband. But when you have this pathology and also the cultural view of honor as something that you must obtain, and shame being the opposite, the downfall from honor. That can be a very dangerous combination, and it was in my husband's case. I remember once, or more than once, but especially when I remember one time where he told me that you are my honor now. And that meant that my behavior and me staying with him was what was keeping his appearance outward. It's also meant that when he felt that he lost face after the separation, he directed a lot of the anger towards me, because once I had promised to love him and stay with him in a period where he was, I made that promise in an age where things were really good between us and he was trying or acting. And I really meant that promise. And I know that a lot of narcissistic individuals make their partner promise not to leave them. And it's easy to make that promise, and then if you are an honest person, then you try to keep your promise. And also, they do become very independent. They do become very dependent on you, and they tie you down with different things. So it makes it very hard to leave a person who is incapable of managing life themselves when you have promised not to. My experience from people with this kind of disorder is that they envision an outcome and then they cling to it with all they have. So, for example, it could be that now we're selling the house and it has to be this amount of money, and there can't be any other outcome. That would be intolerable. And they really cling to that outcome and become really stressed, irritated, angry when things don't go their way. And when things don't go their way, because that always happens in life, they need to put blame somewhere. They can't put it on themselves because they must maintain their honor. No shame or blame can be associated with them. So then they must direct that blame outward. And so it's not even, I don't think it's conscious. They just feel that something went wrong. It can't be me. And then they look for a scapegoat, someone to blame for the situation. It may sound like, oh, my teacher is so unfair. I should have gotten these answers right, but he misunderstood me, or that's not the way he would correct my friend's paper. And of course, that could be correct. I mean, you can have an unjust teacher, but when it's a pattern, when there is always someone else to blame for when things don't go the way you want them to, then then that's not healthy. And it prevents them from developing, actually. You need to be able to see your mistakes to change the way you behave going forward. And it's very sad to see a person go through life and never change. Narcissism is a pathology. So there is a reason for why it's in the DSM. It's a mental pathology and the disorder of the personality. On YouTube, you can find narcissists talking about narcissism. talking about themselves. And often they portray the disorder as being special, as being like almost like they are intelligent or cunning or powerful, while in reality they have a personality structure who of course wants them to view themselves. That's the way they view themselves. That's part of their personality disorder. But actually it's a weakness. And if you have known a few narcissists, when they are young, they are able to, because they have so many opportunities to choose from, they are able to attach to people, and it's not that obvious that they are disordered. They are able to sort of ride on their youth. People cut them slack or see between their fingers. They still have a lot of potential, but as they get older and they keep doing the same destructive pattern, they are not building anything. They are attaching to someone, like making them drag them a bit on the way. And then they sort of they destroy that dynamic and that relationship. And then they need to attach to another person. And they don't learn. It is, they never evolve. And as life goes on, and they have not created or built anything, and people are starting to bail on them. Their parents may pass or get ill, like their resources drain and their opportunities drain, and they are left with this very rigid personality who cannot evolve and cannot change, and who can only point blame. But clinging and blaming or honoring and shaming, that's not only narcissist who does that. It happens to me sometimes, especially when it comes to my kids. When we're out somewhere and they are behaving like without manners, running around or screaming, then if sometimes here in Sweden, people don't say straight out what they think, but they might give you a side look. And that side look has happened to me a few times. I mean, sometimes people come up to me and tell me that, oh, your kids are the most well-behaved I've ever seen. And sometimes they are a bit out of control, and that happens to like every parent and every child. Sometimes you have a bad day and sometimes they are on the good behavior. But when they are on their worst behavior and someone gave me that side look, then I instantly feel ashamed. Like I'm a bad parent. And that, like, I'm trying to not react to this feeling, but when I get that, it's like an instant thing. I get very irritated at my kids. So, and I don't want to talk to them like that or shame them. But it's like an unconscious, that's my reaction. My reaction is like a feeling of shame, but that's almost indistinguishable from the anger that comes afterwards and then directed towards my kids. What is behind this? Well, it's me clinging to me not being able to accept that someone views me as a bad mother, and clinging to the outcome that they should be very well behaved. So clinging causes anger, causes shaming, and it doesn't really help us to get forward in life. So what would be the opposite to going, like you can go forward with fear. If the fear of being a bad mother is driving me in me raising my kids, and the outcome I'm clinging to is they will be very well behaved. And if I am then using, so if you want your kids to be really well behaved all the time, that's hard if you're not using any punishment or shame methods. And if you do punish or shame your kids, then this cycle will perpetuate and they will not evolve with love and security in themselves. And that's actually the main goal of my parenting. I want to raise my kids to break the cycle. So I want them to have a secure self-image and a feeling that they are worthy and that they are loved, and that interacting with them in a respectful manner and in a calm manner and reasoning with them is serving me better than to shame them. So that's my main goal. And when I cling and become fearful, then that makes me lose sight of the love or the thing that I want to create. And it narrows my view. If we become very fearful and very closed down, then we have a hard time to connect with others. Narcissists cannot connect with others. They are so tied down and egocentric that they are constantly focusing everything back to themselves. They cannot let go of themselves. So if you have to have a very good conversation with someone, it's almost like you lose your sense of self and you just focus on that, are very aware in that conversation and listening to what they have to say and thinking about the subject. So a very authentic and uplifting conversation would be one where you are not clinging to yourself during the conversation. You can't have that with a narcissistic person. If you try to share something, they want to share something more interesting. If you say something and not about them at all, then they tie it down to themselves. So they have to think about if they agree, is the thing that you're saying hidden criticism of them, then they need to react. Or is it not about them, then it is boring and they're not interested and might ignore you or change the topic. During my 21 years with my husband, I don't think we never had a conversation. We just had him talking, wanting me to listen. Or when I talked, he would make a judgment on what I was saying, or connected back to himself in some way, positive or negative. We never connected, and that was something that I felt was missing, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I thought that I was too clingy, that I was too needy, and that was putting him off. And like that was the thing that was missing. But what I was really missing was the interest coming back. Like the ability to be interested in another person. He didn't have that ability. And that's horrible, going through life and not having the ability to be curious about life, about people, about nature, or the ability to enjoy these things. So, well, I'm sitting here in nature with a camera, so, but that's not the main goal why I came out here. I am also enjoying being here and enjoying the wind, and it's a beautiful day to take a walk. It's a bit cloudy, but it's still warm, and I can hear birds singing. And after this video, I will keep enjoying my day. I have never seen a narcissistic person actually enjoy themselves. Have you? Comment below if you have. Carl Jung talked about facing our shadow self, and that is a very important part in becoming whole as a person. And the shadow self are the parts of ourselves that we feel ashamed of. So we sort of push them away. For example, if I feel that it's very important for me to be a good mother, then my shadow self would be like if I am not cooking home-cooked meals, and if I'm irritated, that's like the unacceptable part of myself. That's the shadow. And I can't accept that I would be like that. Before, I wasn't able to be angry. That was part of the shadow. I couldn't accept that I would have any negative feelings towards anyone else. I always had to be agreeable, and I always had to be the one making the effort. I couldn't make any demands for myself. That would feel selfish. So that was part of the shadow side, but that is something that I have integrated. So now I am able, I'm not fully there, but I am able to take time for myself and speak up and admit that I do have needs. Perhaps I need to do that actually. I have had, like my schedule at work is a bit erratic, and I think I have not been able to leave on schedule for the last few weeks. So I think I need to make a change there and ask my boss, but just going to him and asking to have a bit of to remove one of the patients daily in my schedule. It's very hard because that would mean admitting that I can't do it in the time that it says on my schedule. It doesn't work. I have been meditating on and off for years, and lately I have been coming back to my meditations. But something has happened when I'm meditating now compared to when I meditated while in the relationship. There is this, like when I'm meditating and then I'm meditating and I'm focusing in on just feeling my body and my breath and just letting the thoughts come and go. And then after a while, the mind quiets down. So that part actually happens quicker. But then there comes this point where I feel like I'm sort of losing contact with this world. Like my consciousness is floating or like it will, if I continue, then it will become empty. And that scares me. So it scares me what will happen if I just let go and just let my consciousness become empty. I don't know, it feels like I will disappear. And I can't do that. I need to be here for my kids. If any of you are experienced meditators, can you please tell me what this means? I would really appreciate it. The more I let go of clinging to outcomes, the more I feel that I am being led through life and I'm being protected, and things happen that has a meaning behind them. There are a lot of synchronicities. So that means like signs from the universe that I'm on the right track. Like things showing up exactly when I need them, or knowledge coming exactly when I need it, or feelings of intuition. And this video is one such. I was actually planning to do something completely different, but then I felt, no, I need to make a video about this topic. We are afraid to let go, but actually what is more scary is to keep clinging. Because clinging means not evolving, and it also means that we are resisting life. So it takes up a lot of energy and anxiety when we cling to things. And when we just live and sometimes allow things to be unfinished. So I don't know where I will be in a year or in 6 months and how my life will look. But I am trying to allow that, just the unknowing. And that was never part of my existence before. I always had a long-term plan, and I always had things under control. But that also meant that I never did anything spontaneous. I was putting in so much energy into keeping everything in order, and there were so many things on my plate. And that was also part of the abuse, of course, to keep me just in the fog. But I did not have the ability to handle anything unexpected. I would be very stressed if something unexpected happened. It would feel like I'm already overwhelmed, so this is just tipping it over the top. And the last few years, I felt really stuck, like in a trap. And I started to have this feeling of just wanting to go to sleep and being extremely tired. And when something unexpected happened, I got that same feeling, like I just want to go to sleep. And that is the functional freeze response. So it's the nervous system being overwhelmed, no longer able to cope with, like, I can't flee, I can't fight, I'm overwhelmed. And then it's just like freezing in front of an insurmountable threat. And I'm still struggling with that same reaction, actually. But it is dimming, but it's taking time. So I can't deal with too many things at the same time, because then my mind just shuts down and I can't think about it. It's sort of, it walls it off. It's very weird. But it's the functional freeze. In a way, perhaps that reaction is a way to force you to let go. Are you still struggling to let go? And what are the things that are keeping you? Just imagine that you let go of the outcome, like just leaving that outcome up to the universe or God. Like in this situation, even if the worst were to happen, I just leave it. In every situation, there are always many, many outcomes. You don't know what the outcome will be before you take the step. And when fear is keeping us stuck, we are always focused on the worst outcome. In my case, yes, some of those worst outcomes did happen, but it turns out they were not that bad. And I split my family. I was under threat for my life, had to move. But my kids are thriving and I am feeling life return. I also learned that the fear sort of made me feel small and without power, and it painted him out like this powerful person. Well, in reality, he is not. And I have already been able to defeat him in some ways. And I believe that me aligning with right truth, love, that is where my power lies. So when you are clinging and egocentric, you cannot align with these forces that actually are like underlying the life force of the universe. So you become like unable to view some things. You just shield them off, and you're unable to see yourself. And you lie to keep up appearance. You scheme and manipulate in order to get the outcome that you want. And then you're on your own. Like you're cutting yourself off from the source. During the early years of our relationship, when my then boyfriend was still love bombing me, I was cut off. And I was becoming more egocentric because he it felt like he was worshipping me or telling me how great I was, and that felt good. But it was like my worth and my happiness was tied to that self-image. Like I had to be the person that he saw me as, because that was where my value was. And that made me very sensitive to threats towards that image. So I could not lose face, and it made me cling a lot to outcomes. And it made me very tense, and I had to prepare for everything. I needed everything to be in order. But it also made me lose connection with the magic and the charm and life. So what happens if I let go even more? I don't know. But so far the journey has been really magical. And just in these 19 months, I have evolved a lot. I no longer feel like the same woman who walked out that day. And just I feel so much bit larger. Perhaps it is that I have started to integrate these shadow parts of myself that I never could accept. And I can admit that I'm tired. I need to rest. I want to do something, or that I'm not perfect. I'm working on that. I'm working on it. Feels good to be perfect, but it's not worth it. I wasn't living in that relationship. I was closed off from life. But I think he knew that I had the ability to live and to grow. And he was afraid that I would connect with that. Because he couldn't, then he would lose control. Thank you for listening to this. I would really love it if you post your comments down below about this topic. This is Emma holding up light over the bridge. Remember, there is always a way out. There is always a way forward. Please be safe, take care, and have a great day.